Hey everybody, it's Nathaniel Avila reporting from Dallas County, and I'm here with Jessica, no last name given, in San Antonio.
Hello.
So what is this podcast?
True crime.
True
That's
crime,
what that is.
as
That's what it
opposed to
is.
fake crime.
True crime. True crime. Opposed to fiction, which is not real.
It's called
This
crime
is
fiction.
This is real crime.
That was crime fiction is actually one of my favorite classes that I took in college.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. We discussed like various different like novels surrounding crime fiction. We read what did we read? We read like The Big Sleep. We read the Dupont trilogy, which is like the very first crime fiction novel that was ever written. We read The Hounds of Baskerville. We read what else? What was that one? Strangers on a Train. Those kind of novels, and that was really fun. It was really
That
really fun.
sounds fun.
Mm-hmm. We also watched Chinatown, but the guy who did it should also be on this. We should discuss on this podcast because he did some bad things.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean? Okay.
We'll get there. Yeah, we should do that.
You know who made Chinatown? It
Mm-mm.
was Roman Polanski.
Still don't know who that
You don't know who
is.
Polanski is? He had like a relation with a 15-year-old girl.
Oh my god. I just saw about that the top guy from some big corporation just got sentenced to jail for pedophilia or having relations with somebody, or was it relations or just distributing child porn? I don't know.
Yeah,
It was just recently.
Right. That's another thing. Like, I know we do like a lot of range of crimes on the show, but I don't know if the one crime that I don't know if I could stomach is that of pedophilia and child porn.
Oh yeah, that's I don't think I could either. Like, I see stuff about it, and even when I like TikTok, they're like 1 minute videos, right?
Right.
Even that 1 minute is too much. Like, it's a lot. And it just doesn't go away. I mean, you get concerned for the victims, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know that I'd want to talk about that either.
yeah, like people like Jared Fogle. I don't know if we can do that. Who else? Polanski, as I just said. That guy. I don't remember his name. He used to be a singer on YouTube. He got sentenced, I think, for like 10 years for asking like underage girls to like twerk for him and be really weird.
Weird.
Let me see.
Did you hear about that new series on Netflix that's coming out? It's under fire for child porn distribution.
Cuties?
Yeah! Cuties.
Cuties. It's the film itself has nothing to do with any like that. It's just Netflix marketed it so poorly that's
that
how
picture
it looked. Yeah, like as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Ooh, that's gonna cause some problems." And alas, it did. Like all the stuff like with Austin Jones, that's his name. Austin Jones. So people like Austin Jones and the people on To Catch a Predator, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I was just coming to talk to them and tell them that this is wrong, that they shouldn't be doing that, or talking to people on the internet.
What are you talking
That's
about?
what some of them would say as their reasons to why they showed up.
On To Catch a Predator, yeah, I hear that one a lot. And a lot of their excuse, and sometimes they'll also say like, I would never do that because I'm a parent.
Yeah, I mean, I have kids. Why would I do that?
Well,
I came over here to warn them.
It's apparent that you're a bad person.
That
was a Mr. G joke.
It's funny when you see them eat the cookies, because he always comes out like he has like a a tray or a plate of cookies there.
Right. There's like sometimes like the predators would actually well they would see the cookies and they would connect the two together, and then it'll be like, oh no. Like, I remember that was
Huh.
this one guy who was like, as soon as I saw the brownies, I knew that I was running into you, Mister Handsome.
Yeah, I think I saw that too.
But yeah, those are some things that we probably couldn't stomach. So people like that, yeah, and so I know that there's going to be a new. Speaking of which, is it going to be like this new miniseries on FX coming out called A Teacher, which was about the relationship between a high school teacher and a student. So let's see how that turns out.
Uh,
I mean, what
why?
do you mean why? Because
Why would they do that?
it's entertain. Why would they make a miniseries out of it, or why would the teacher
Yeah,
do that? Because it's entertaining.
but like, it's disturbing.
Well, the actor's of age.
I know, but still. I mean, I guess nowadays, like, you go back and look at movies, you know, 10, 15 years ago, and all that stuff was okay. They just see it as a movie, another movie. The young high school teenager trying to turn her teacher on so she could get him in trouble or some stupid shit like that. And that's just like a movie. But nowadays, it's like, ooh,
No, yeah,
why would they do
but
that?
this miniseries called The Teacher, that it was based off of the actual true story that actually happened. It is actually portrayed like as like a very bad crime that is being committed. That's what that is. It's not like an Adam Sandler movie where
So it's like, is it based off of that, like the one that just happened not that long ago, where the girl ran off with her teacher?
it was a guy and a woman teacher. It was
Oh,
a
so it's the opposite.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
it was a boy teenager and a woman teacher. Let me look it up.
You know what I'm talking about?
I kind of
I think they took off. They were hiding in Colorado. I
yeah, that's a
think.
great place to hide.
No.
What?
I don't even know where they were hiding, to be
Let
honest.
me
I thought that's
see.
where it was. So
Yeah, caught in an affair with Mrs. Yeah, so stuff like that, and yeah. If you want to, also there's another like, So anyway, what we're gonna do with our actual topic is I'm gonna discuss, um, the life and times of one Khorloogiin. I I probably gonna mispronounce this guy's name, Khorloogiin Choibalsan.
sounds about right.
Yeah. Who is a Mongolian dictator who who ruled over a lot of like Mongolia during like the 1930s through the 40s, that kind of stuff. So let me tell you this very long story. It's a very long story. There's a
Yeah.
lot of information on this guy. Okay, so Choibalsan was born on February 8th, 1895, in Achet Basin near present day Choibalsan, Dornod province. He was the youngest of four children born to a poor unmarried herdsman named Khorloo. The name Khorloogiin is matronymic. If you don't know what that means, it means like a personal name based on the given name of one's mother, grandmother, or any female ancestor. So,
Oh.
so his father was likely a Barga tribesman, a Daor Mongol from Inner Mongolia called Jamsu. But Choibalsan claimed to be unaware of his identity, so we never really knew his father.
Okay.
So he was originally named Dugar at birth, so that was his real name. But he then assumed his religious name of Choibalsan at the age of 13 after entering a local Buddhist monastery of San Baisin Kuri, where he trained to be to be a lamest monk. Excuse me. I gotta apologize in advance about these names. I don't know if I'm pronouncing them right at all.
Okay.
So 5 years later, he fled to Kuri, which also known as Urga in present-day Ulaanbaatar, with another novice where he worked like odd jobs, in part to prevent him from being returned to the monastery. A sympathetic Buryat teacher named Nikolai Dachinov had him enrolled in the Russian consulate's Russian Mongolia translator school. A year later, he was sent on at public expense to study at a gymnasium in Irkutsk, Russia, from 1914 to 1917.
Okay.
So, what do you think about this guy so far? He's
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot?
Not a whole lot.
Okay, let's see. See if your opinion changes later on. So Choibalsan and fellow Mongolian students in Russia were called back to Kuri by the Bagd Khan government following the 1917 October Revolution. Exposed to Bolshevism while living under Irkutsk's radicalized student population, Choibalsan joined the revolutionary Consular Hill group, heavily influenced by Bolshevist philosophy and established to resist the Chinese occupation of Outer Mongolia after 1919. So original members of the group also included Dabin Chagdarjov and Darzavin Losol. Dogsomin Bodu, the group's leader, was a former teacher and mentor of Choibalsan at the Russian Mongolian School for Translators. With his serviceable Russian, Choibalsan served as the group's translator with contacts at the Russian consulate. These contacts later encouraged Konstantin Denge to join forces with the more nationalist-oriented resistant group, the East Kuri, which joined Solin Dazan, Dansra Balijin, Dogsum, and Damdin Sukbatar. I'm trying my best. Don't laugh at me.
I can't even I can't compute in my head.
Okay.
Because I'm reading them, with you.
Okay. On June 25th, 1920, a new body adopted the name the Mongolian People's Party. In 1924, the party renamed itself the Mongolian People's Revolutionary Party, or MPRP, after the death of Bagd Khan, and the formal proclamation of the Mongolian People's Republic. So in late 1920, Choibalsan and Danzan embarked for Irkutsk, where they were later joined by Losol, Changdarjov, Dogsum, Dandev, and Sukbatar, the famous First Seven. What do you mean you never heard of them? They're famous.
I never said that.
But you were.
But I actually haven't.
Okay.
Right.
To establish contacts with the Soviets and seek resistance in their struggle for independence. Choibalsan and Sukbatar remained together in Irkutsk for several months, raising awareness of Mongolia's plight and receiving military training. During the period, Sukbatar gradually became a second mentor to Choibalsan. While the group of seven continued their lobbying efforts in Soviet Russia, forces commanded by the anti-Bolshevik Russian warlord Roman von Ungern-Sternberg invaded Mongolia from the east and ejected occupying Chinese garrisons from Kuri in October 1920. No longer faced with directly confronting with the Chinese in Mongolia, the Soviets finally threw their backing behind the Mongolian revolutionaries. Choibalsan and Sukbatar relocated to Trotskyvask, modern-day Kyatka, on the Russian-Mongolian border. So, to coordinate revolutionary activities and recruit Mongolian fighters, Choibalsan secretly ventured as far as Kuri to consult with MPP supporters, endless fighters, and spirit members of Sukbatar's family back to Troitskyvask. So, at Soviet-organized MPP conference held secretly in Troitskyvask from March 1st to 3rd, 1921, subsequently regarded as the first Congress of the Mongolian People's Revolutionary Party, Choibalsan was elected a member of the Provisional Revolutionary Government. He was also appointed political commissar, or deputy chief and chief propagandist of the Mongolian People's Army, which was also commanded by Sukbatar. So, how are you feeling about this guy?
Well, I don't know.
You don't know?
He's got a lot going on, that's for sure.
What do you mean he's got a lot going on?
Well, I mean, he's running around trying to find people, trying to get fighters, and now he's been appointed as the political commissar.
Yeah. But do you think what he's doing is good so far?
No.
No, you don't think he's doing good? Why?
I don't know.
You don't know? You just wanted to say no to something?
Yeah.
You just want to be contrarian?
Yeah.
Okay. Within days, Supatar's Mongolian partisan army, which is now numbering 400 men, defeated the larger but demoralized Chinese garrison that fled to Kyatka. Maimaicheng, which is modern day Altanbulag. Joint Mongol and Red Army forces directly confronted Ungern's troops in a series of battles near Troitskosavsk from late May to mid-June. Choibalsan took command of a Mongolian detachment based in Tariat in modern-day Arkhangai province. And together with the Russian forces commanded by Peter Efremovich Shettinkin, fought right guard actions in western Mongolia in support of the Brain Russian Mongolia advance through modern-day Salinj and Tov provinces. After small skirmishes with Ungern's remaining guard units, the joint Russian-Mongol force entered Kuri unchallenged on July 6, 1921. Choibalsan pursued remnants of Ungern's army and was likely on hand at Ungern's capture by Shenkinton in August 22nd, 1921. So, they defeated him. Good job.
Good job.
Good job.
Good job.
After the revolution, Choibalsan remained a deputy chief of Mongolian People's Army while also being elected chairman of the Mongolian Revolutionary Youth League. Despite his credentials as one of the MPP's founding members, he failed to advance beyond second-tier government posts throughout the 1920s. His heavy drinking, womanizing, and violent temperament alienated him from party leaders, and at one point in the early 1930s, he was temporarily demoted from being Minister of Foreign Affairs to the role of simple museum director. What? What's so funny?
Wow. How do you go from being an MP to a director of a museum?
I don't know, dude. Because
that's like being the director of operations or like one of the VPs and being demoted to a regular manager, not the operations manager, not the senior manager, a regular manager. That's just the way I see it. Just the level of responsibility of a prime minister of affairs, which is taking care of a country's affairs,
right,
to a museum, just a small building.
Like, well, he was constantly drinking a lot, and he was very violent, and he was constantly like picking up chicks.
So okay, let's take his authority away from running a country, but he can still run a business. It's cool.
It was not just any business, a museum.
A museum. Okay.
It's just a bunch of artifacts. Just
I wonder what kind of museum. Not that it matters. I'm just saying, like, maybe if it was like a boring museum nobody went to.
Instead of it was like the National Museum, the Museum of Natural History in the Night of the Museum series.
That's fun though.
Where all the people come to life.
That's a fun museum.
Yeah. or the Smithsonian, which is like a bunch of different museums.
I want to go there. We should go.
I've been there. It's really cool. What?
I've never been there.
You should definitely try. It's pretty tight. They have an IMAX in the Air and Space Museum where they showed Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian. I don't know if they still do, but they did when I visited. It was like that movie was still like still in theaters at the time, but I don't know if they still do it because just only as the fact that it takes place at the museum. Anyway, so he often gravitated toward the leftist faction of the party. He was suspected of being a rightist in what little mention is made of him in the Soviet and Mongolian reports of the era. So Choibalsan himself did not include many of his own speeches from his period in his collected works, indicating his role during this period was not a prominent one. It was not until members of the Soviet security apparatus, such as Soviet Commissar for Defense Klement Voroshilov, took note of Choibalsan's political usefulness in the late 1920s and early 1930s, that his career prospects begin to improve. So, in late 1921, Choibalsan's MRYL foot soldiers carried out Prime Minister Bodu's modernization campaign of forcibly cutting off feudal ornaments from Mongolian clothing, such as large cuffs, women's jewelry, long hair, that kind of thing. The angry public backlash led to Badu's purge and eventual execution on August 1922, while Choibalsan was stripped of both full party membership and his position of as deputy commander of the Mongolian military. Only Sukbatar's intervention saved him from Bodo's fate. Choibalsan was sent to a Moscow Russian military academy after Sukbatar's death in 1923. And when he returned to Ulaanbaatar a year later, he was offered his old mentor's former position as commander-in-chief of the People's Revolutionary Troops. He also led positions as a member of the Presidium of the State Great Khural from 1924 to 1928, and as a member of the MPRP Central Committee. So, at the Third Party Congress in 1924, Choibalsan sided with the leftist leader Rinchingin Elbegdorj, as left and right-wing factions of the MPRP called for the arrest and execution of moderate party leader Danzan, who was accused of protecting the bourgeoisie interest and engaging in business with Chinese firms. Following Danzan's death, Choibalsan and Rinchino's political influence diminished as the party's right wing, led by Sarin Ochirin Damdaborj, assumed control, and during a period later referred to as the right opportunism, promoted rightist policies mirroring Lenin's new economic policy in the Soviet Union. The rise of Joseph Stalin and termination of Lenin's new public policy influenced political developments in the MPR, with 1928 MPRP 7th Party Congress ushering in the leftist period. Soviet advisors arranged for Choibalsan to be kicked upstairs to be chairman of the Little Khural, which is also known as the titular head of state, from where in 1929 to 1930 he supported implementation of Soviet-backed leftist policies of more rapid collectivization, land expropriation, and persecution of the Buddhist faith. So, what do you think so far?
I don't know. There's a lot going on.
What do you mean? There's a lot going on?
There's a lot going on. We've gone through quite a bit, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a lot of information.
Mm-hmm. Now, at the 8th Party Congress in 1930, Choibalsan contributed to a ramping up leftist socialist reforms when, again encouraged by Soviet agents, he introduced personally formulated decrees of intensified land confiscation and forced collectivization measures. His appointment in 1931 as Minister of Livestock and Agriculture, a position he held until 1935, gave him even greater authority to enforce the policies. Traditional herders were forced off the steppe and into badly managed collective farms, destroying 1/3 of Mongolian livestock. Over 800 properties belonging to the nobility and the Buddhist faith were confiscated, and over 700 head of mostly noble households were executed.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. So now you're seeing... Yeah?
So genocide
Yeah. So now...
of the Choibalsan people. Choibalsan cult.
So now...
Is that what it was?
Yeah, well, kind of.
Buddhist faith. The Buddhist faith.
So, yeah, now we're seeing, like, his true colors coming out now.
Yeah, so if that wasn't any indicator of the way he was being before, all his behaviors before, which made them pull back his position from being in charge of a country to just in charge of a museum. And now he's back to being in charge of all this stuff, even more power than he had before.
Yeah. And it was like mostly because his pal Sokbatan really like stuck his neck out for him.
Man.
And then he kind of like just... And then he died. Sokbatan died, and there was no one else to vouch for him. And then he left to Russia. But, I mean, now he's back, and now he's more powerful than ever. It's Choibalsan 2, Electric Boogaloo. So let's continue. So, the government's aggressive measures ultimately led to brutal armed uprising in Kovsgal, Arkhangai, Overkhangai, and Zavkhan provinces in 1932. In reaction, Moscow ordered a temporary curtailment of economic centralization efforts. Comintern agents counted on Choibalsan to be a strong advocate for its new turn policy to correct the excesses of the left deviation. It was introduced in the extraordinary plenum of the MPRP Central Committee in June 1932. Later MPR histories would credit Choibalsan with being the first to criticize the leftist period and purpose reforms, but these were mere fabrications meant to build up Choibalsan's cult of personality. So, in the summer of 1934, Choibalsan's name surfaced during the interrogations of party members arrested as part of the Lukumbe affair, a manufactured conspiracy in which MPRP General Secretary Jambin Lukumbe and other MPRP elements, particularly Buryat Mongols, were falsely accused of conspiring with Japanese spies. So, the invasion of neighboring Manchuria by Japanese forces in 1931 had raised fears of in Ulaanbaatar and Moscow alike if possible Japanese military expansion into Mongolia and the Soviet Far East. Over 1,500 people were implicated in the purge and 56 were executed. Choibalsan was called to Moscow, where he was arrested and interrogated regarding his possible involvement. Within days, however, he was cooperating with the NKVD in the interrogation of the torture of fellow Mongolians. Satisfied with his loyalty, Stalin ordered Mongolia's Prime Minister Peljedin Gendin to appoint Choibalsan as deputy prime minister. Gendin vigorously objected, but to no avail. As relations between Gendin and Stalin soured, Choibalsan's influence in Moscow increased. In 1935, a public sign of his favor, Stalin gifted Choibalsan 20 GAZ or Gaz automobiles, which he distributed among Mongolian power players to increase his prestige. What? What do you?
He's something else.
He's hanging out with Stalin now. Now he's got Stalin in his corner. So now he's basically
Handing out cars to people that are having his back.
It makes you think, huh?
I
Makes you
know.
think how
People in
history.
power just throw money and people just support them, you know?
That you're not allowed in America. There's a thing called the annulments clause, which prevents people of in office to not do that.
So they do it other ways,
Um.
like investing in companies or
Right. Yeah.
stuff like that.
Well, yeah. Um. Especially during this day and age, people are doing it more blatantly, and they're not even trying to hide it. But let's continue on in 1936. Choibalsan and Galegdorjin Demid were appointed marshals of the armed forces, while Choibalsan also became head of the newly elevated Ministry of Internal Affairs, 26% of whose staff were NKVD agents. Acting under Moscow's directive, Choibalsan then had Gendin purged in March 1936 for sabotaging Mongol-Soviet relations by rejecting Stalin's demand that he eliminate the country's Buddhist clergy. Gendin was removed from his offices of the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, arrested, and sent to Moscow, where he would be executed a year later. Ahmadin Amar became Prime Minister in his place. So over the next 3 years, Soviet mentors of Ministry of Internal Affairs guided Choibalsan in planning and carrying out the Great Terror. Possibly advised by a Soviet official, Chopyak, Choibalsan and Internal Affairs Committee rules amended on May 1936 to facilitate the detention of high-ranking politicians without first consulting political superiors. Soon thereafter, 23 high-ranking lamas were arrested for participating in a counter-revolutionary center. Following a year-long trial, they were publicly executed in early October 1937, when Mongolia's procurator general protested the lama's prosecution. He too was arrested and then shot. So
Jesus.
yeah, he's really just killing all these people. So what do
You
you
say no to me, then bye.
Do you think basically he's being manipulated by Stalin and the Soviet Union?
I don't think, I mean, I don't, at this point, I don't see that, but it's possible.
So in August 1937, a 30-year-old Marshal Demid, whose popularity Choibalsan had always resented, died under suspicious circumstances, resulting in Choibalsan's promotion to the dual role of sole commander-in-chief of the Mongolian military and Minister of Defense. So the following day, Choibalsan, as Interior Minister, issued Order 366, which declared that many in Mongolia had fallen under the influence of Japanese spies and provocateurs. That same month, Stalin, alarmed by Japanese military movements in Manchuria, ordered the stationing of 30,000 Red Army troops in Mongolia and had dispatched a large Soviet delegation to Ulaanbaatar under Soviet Deputy NKVD Commissar Mikhail Frenovsky. Frenovsky was charged with setting in motion the violent purges he had so effectively carried out in the Soviet Union under NKVD chief Nikolai Yezhov. Working through Soviet advisors already embedded within the Ministry of the Interior, and with the willing Choibalsan providing a symbolic cover, Frenovsky built the Purge framework from behind the scenes, producing a restless and creating an NKVD-style troika, headed by Choibalsan, to try suspects. Now, the arrest of 65 high-ranking government officials and intelligentsia on the night of September 10th, 1937, signaled the launch of the purchase in earnest. All were accused of spying for Japan as part of a Gendon Demid plot, and most confessed under intense torture. The first show trial was staged at the Central Theater from October 1918 to 18th to 20th, 1937. 13 of the 14 persons accused were sentenced to death. So, they were just giving them show trials, so it wasn't a real trial. It was a trial that they know that they were going to get convicted.
Sorry, it's late. Sorry, though.
So what's your opinion on that? Get out of your aunt.
So you say it was like, it says that it was supposed to be only a hearing, but for their sentencing?
Mm-hmm.
So did they know they were going to get sentenced like to that right then and there?
To death? Yeah. Because it was just a show trial. The trial was fake. It wasn't a real due process. They knew they didn't have a chance to actually get acquitted. It was just
They wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Not under this guy's command.
Yeah. So, in a spasm of violence that lasted nearly 18 months, Choibalsan's troika approved and carried out the execution of over 17,000 counter-revolutionary lamas. Monks that were not executed were forcibly laicized, while 746 of the country's monasteries were liquidated. Thousands more dissident intellectuals, political and government officials, labeled enemies of the revolution, as well as ethnic Buryats and Kazakhs, were also rounded up and killed. 25 persons from top positions of the party and government were executed. 187 of the military leadership, 36 of the 51 members of the Central Committee. Following the Russian model, Choibalsan opened gulags in the countryside to imprison dissidents. While the NKVD effectively managed the purge by staging show trials and carrying out executions, a frequently intoxicated Choibalsan was sometimes present during torture. And interrogations of suspected counter-revolutionaries, including old friends and comrades. Choibalsan rubber-stamped NKVD execution orders and at times personally directed executions. He also added names of political enemies to NKVD arrest lists simply to settle old scores. So, this guy, what do you think?
He's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's getting to a point where he's just going to be like, you looked at me, kill him.
You think?
Like, yeah.
You think his power basically kind of corrupted him pretty good?
I think his power is getting to his head. It sounds like he's taking some sort of pleasure in carrying out some of these executions on himself.
Right, and he would always come out. He would always be in the torture room drunk when he was there. What do you think that tells you about him?
Just, I don't know. He's an alcoholic. That he's violent. He's a violent alcoholic. But he likes to see people do things, and then he likes to do them too.
So, racked with stress, Choibalsan spent 6 months recuperating and consulting with Voroshilov, Yezhov, and Stalin in Moscow and Sochi, while NKVD agents and Interior Ministry officials carried on purge operations from Ulaanbaatar. When he returned to Mongolia, Choibalsan followed Soviet directives and had the highly popular Prime Minister Amar purged. Choibalsan claimed that he had helped anti-government plotters, opposed their arrest, and neglected the defense of the borders. He betrayed his own country and was a traitor to the revolution. That's his words. After a coordinated propaganda campaign, Amar was arrested on March 7th, 1939, and sent to the USSR, where he was later tried by Soviet Troika and executed. So now, With Amar's removal, Choibalsan became Mongolia's uncontested leader, simultaneously holding the office of Prime Minister, Minister of Internal Affairs, Minister of War, and Commander-in-Chief of the Mongolian Armed Forces. Secured in his position, Choibalsan brought the terror to an end in April 1939 by declaring that the excesses of the purges had been conducted by overzealous party officials while he was away in the USSR, but that he had overseen the arrest of the real criminals. Official blame for the purges fell on the Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs, Nasantagto, and his former Soviet handler, Kichikov. Later, other henchmen of the purge were arrested and executed, including Lavsansharov, Bayagalan, these guys, okay? These guys. Okay, so the last two living members, besides Choibalsan himself, of the original 7 founding members of the MPRP, were also arrested. Dogsum was executed in 1941. Losol died in Soviet prison before his case came to trial. So, now Choibalsan is at full power. Now where he's at his final form. He finally made it. He became like prime minister and all these other positions at the same time. So what do you think he's gonna do with with this much power? Just
I don't know.
Kill everyone he sees.
Kill everybody that he doesn't like or agree with.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are you gonna do with all that power? Just count the tickets. Just count the hours.
Oh gosh.
Well, then something happened during this time. You want to know what it is?
What?
You know what it is. You
made a lady?
Huh?
Oh.
You met a lady.
You made a lady?
We can go into like we're gonna go into like his relationships in near the end.
Oh.
So, actually, in the spring of 1939, Japanese Kwantung Army military leaders moved to test the resolve of the Soviet and Mongolian militaries to protect disputed territory along Mongolia's southeast border with Japanese-occupied Manchuria. Over the course of 3 battles, a heavily armored Soviet military force commanded by Georgy Zhukov decisively defeated the Japanese advance near the village of Nomonhan. There were nearly 8,000 casualties for both the Soviet and Japanese forces. Nevertheless, the victory, which took place close to his birthplace, helped cement Choibalsan's growing cult of personality, which portrayed him as a staunch defender of Mongolian independence against the imperialist Japanese aggression. So basically, World War II happened. World War II is happening. So Choibalsan proclaimed his country's unwavering support for the Soviet Union after Germany's invasion of the USSR in June 1941. Although Mongolia never officially declared war against Germany and waited until August 1945 to declare war against Japan, as nearly as 1939, Stalin had pushed Choibalsan to increase Mongolia's livestock population to 200 million as a source of raw materials for the Soviet Union in the event of war in Europe. Throughout the conflict, the MPR's economy was recalibrated to provide material support to the Soviet Union in the form of livestock, raw materials, money, food, military clothing, meat, sheepskin, felt boots, fur-lined coats, and funding for several Soviet military units. Choibalsan and the newly elected Secretary General of the MPRP, Yumjagin Sudenbal, traveled to the front near Moscow to distribute gifts and Red Army troops. Stalin awarded Choibalsan the Order of Lenin for his outstanding effort in organizing the Mongolian people for the delivery of aids and goods to the Red Army in July 1944. So hooray. Good job. What?
Hey.
You're not happy for him? He got the Order of Lenin. That's great.
Cool.
It's not good. How dare you say it's cool? I'm kidding. So despite the provisions of wartime, Choibalsan and party leaders pressed on with what limited social progress they could manage while delivering much of the country's economic output to the Soviets. Choibalsan consistently sought Moscow's assent before making key decisions given in minor matters and made efforts to curry Moscow's favor whenever possible. At the 10th Party Congress in March through April 1940, Choibalsan arranged the purge of the MPRP Secretary General Basanjov and had him replaced with a new favorite of Stalin's, a 24-year-old Minister of Finance, Yumjagin Sudenbal. Although he relinquished leadership of the MPRP, Choibalsan continued to be a predominant force of the Mongolian politics and pushed through reforms of the Mongolian constitution more in the line with the 1936 USSR constitution that effectively ended the influence of power of the Buddhist Church. Between 1941 and 1946, the country adopted the Cyrillic script in place of the traditional Mongolian script. On October 5th, 1942, Choibalsan University in Ulaanbaatar opened, financed largely by the Soviets and with courses taught in Russian. So now we're starting to see the beginning of the end here, right? Choibalsan is no longer Stalin's favorite. It's now this other guy, the Minister of Finance, the Sudenbal guy. What?
No, I'm just laughing.
Oh, yeah. This is hilarious, right?
No, at the fact that now it's not the guy anymore.
Yeah, I know.
It's somebody else.
Yeah. So, an ardent Mongolian nationalist, Choibalsan never gave up hope of reuniting all of the Mongols under the auspices of the Mongolian People's Republic. Until 1945, he had encouraged an ethnic insurgency in eastern Xinjiang with Stalin's support, looking to strengthening the MPR's influence in the region and possibly beyond to Gansu and Qinghai. He later saw the impending defeat of Japan as the opportunity to realize his long-held dream of a great Mongolia and uniting the outer and inner Mongolia, and he fully expected Stalin's backing as a reward for Mongolians' steadfast support of the Soviets during the war. On August 10th, 1945, Mongolia declared war on Japan 2 days after the Soviet Union and both armies joined forces to attack Japanese strongholds in northern China during the Manchurian Strategic Offensive Operation. At the same time, Choibalsan unleashed a brief wave of pan-Mongolist nationalism through the press, calling for unification and encouraging a grassroots pan-Mongolist movement in Inner Mongolia. When Choibalsan ordered Mongolian troops to move south of the Great Wall as far as Shangjaiku, Qingde, and Batu Khalga, he was later ordered by an angry Stalin to call them back. Conversely, it also marked Greater Mongolia's permanent division into an independent Mongolian People's Republic and a neighboring Inner Mongolia. Okay. So, at the end of the war, Mongolia embarked on a policy of construction of the foundations of socialism, proclaiming it necessary to exterminate the concept of property. Choibalsan looked to modernize the country based on the Soviet model while expanding the communal agricultural sector, founding largely through Soviet aid. The country's first 5-year plan focused on economic development, infrastructure, construction, and doubling the country's livestock. Initiatives were taken to develop the agrarian industrial transportation under his government. Nelak coal mine, the electric grid, Zunbayan petroleum factory, other metal and mineral factories, the Naush-Ulaanbaatar railway, and other transportation systems were developed, along with communication sectors to establish modern mining and improve education and health services. So, in addition to establishing the country's first major university, Choibalsan initiated policies to increase literacy rate and developed the 10-year elementary, middle, and high school system. In 1949, communist victory in China eliminated, at least temporarily, the threat on Mongolia's southern border, allowing the MPR to begin reducing its 80,000-strong army. Defense expenditures dropped from 33% of the total budget in 1948 to 15% in 1952. So what do you think? Did he regain himself?
Sorry, I didn't know if I moved my microphone.
Okay.
I thought I put it up.
Okay.
What do I think? I don't know what to think.
You don't know what to think?
No.
Really? Because it seems like he's trying to improve Mongolia now at this point after World War II.
I don't know.
Okay.
Is he though?
I don't know.
It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to think somebody like this is trying to do some good after they did so much bad.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see.
So although Choibalsan maintained a policy of stronger ties with the Soviet Union, in February 1946 he renewed the 1936 Protocol Treaty of Friendship and Mutual Assistance for another 10 years and concluded the first bilateral agreement on economic and cultural cooperation. He nonetheless understood the importance of solidifying Mongolia's independence through international recognition. In 1948, the MPR established diplomatic relations with the DPRK, also known as North Korea. And then the People's Republic of China in 1949. Mongolia was the first country to recognize the PRC. In 1950, the Eastern Bloc communist states of East Germany, Hungary, Poland, and Czechoslovakia all established formal relations with the MPR. So while never reaching the frenzies levels of 1937 to 1939 arrests and executions of dissidents persisted until Choibalsan. So arrests and executions and dissidents are continued until Choibalsan's death in 1952. Repressions were initiated in 1940, 1941, and 1942. In 1947, a political scandal known as Port Arthur was fabricated around a fictitious plot to assassinate Choibalsan. 80 people were arrested, 42 of whom were executed. The MPRP Central Committee issued proclamations to fight increased anti-revolutionary sentiment, and Interior Ministry secret police cells sprouted throughout the country. Party allegiance was strengthened by growing membership in the MPRP. Membership doubled from 1940 to 1947, reaching nearly 28,000. So throughout the remaining years of his life, Choibalsan continued to hold out hope of a united Mongolia, especially after the victory of Chinese communists in 1949. When it became clear that Stalin would never back unification, he grew increasingly disillusioned with his former hero. Personal relations between the two leaders deteriorated to a point that by 1929, Choibalsan refused to attend Stalin's 70th birthday celebration in Moscow, sending Sendenbal in his place. In 1950, Sendenbal and other protégés urged Choibalsan to have Mongolia follow the example of Tuva and petition Moscow to be permitted to join the Soviet Union. Choibalsan severely rebuked them. What?
Of course he did.
So,
of course he did.
Why are you saying of course he did?
Because it's just how he is.
Okay.
So he rebuked them. He said no.
Yeah, because he didn't want to. Yeah, because he didn't want to join the Soviet Union because he was mad at Stalin.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. So in 1951, Choibalsan traveled to Moscow to receive treatment for kidney cancer. He died there on January 26, 1952. Choibalsan's body was returned to Mongolia with full military honors and was given a state funeral in the capital, which was attended by Mongolian and Soviet officials alike. He was originally buried at Altan Ulgi Cemetery in Ulaanbaatar, In July 1956, his body was moved to the newly built mausoleum of Sukbatar in front of Government House and on north side of Sukbatar Square, where the two lay until the 1990 Democratic Revolution in Mongolia. The mausoleum was torn down in 2005, and the corpses of both rulers were ritually cremated under the supervision of the Buddhist clergy, and the ashes entombed again at Altan Olgi Cemetery. So now he's dead.
Now he's dead.
How do you feel about that?
Well, he's dead.
Okay. So let's go into what you said earlier about his marriages and the women that are in his life.
Oh, okay. I wondered.
Yeah, so Choibalsan married a devout Buddhist seamstress named Barotalagai in 1921, and the two remained married until 1935, despite his womanizing. In 1929, he began an affair with the actress Dewi, after which Barotalagai requested a divorce in 1935. Choibalsan then married a modern woman named B. Gundegma. He had no children with either of his wives. In 1937, Choibalsan adopted the son of one of his interior ministry subordinates, although rumors claimed that the boy was in fact Choibalsan's illegitimate child. Later,
I bet you it was.
Okay. Later, Gundegma adopted a girl, Sud. So, Choibalsan's image in modern Mongolia remains mixed. At the time of his death, he was widely mourned as a hero, a patriot, and ultimately a martyr for the cause of the Mongolian independence. Remnants of his strong personality cult, as well as successful efforts by his successor, Sendenbal, to obstruct de-Stalinization efforts that could have shed light on Choibalsan's actions during the purges, helped solidify the positive regard many Mongolians held of their former leader. Official criticisms of Choibalsan in 1956 and 1969, which blamed him for crude violations of the revolutionary law that led to many people perishing. And even the MPRP Central Committee's 1962 decision to, in lockstep with Khrushchev's anti-Stalinization policies, to take decisive measures to ensure complete liquidation of the harmful consequences of Choibalsan's cult of personality in all spheres of life, failed to generate serious public discourse in the matter. So, some scholars have suggested the inclination of Mongolians to avoid blaming Choibalsan for the purges is in effect an attempt to exonerate themselves for what happened. Public anger over the violence of the purges falls predominantly on the Soviet Union and the NKVD, which Choibalsan viewed sympathetically, if not pathetically, as a puppet with little choice but to follow Moscow's instructions, or else meet the fate of his predecessors, Gendin and Amar. At the end of socialist rule in 1990, however, re-examining Choibalsan's rule has occurred, and there does seem to be an attempt by some Mongolians to come to terms with the country's socialist past in a more general context. Nevertheless, Choibalsan is still not the object of strong resentment in Mongolia. That sentiment is reserved for the Soviet Union. Stalin's statue, for example, was removed from in front of the National Library in 1990. Shortly after the Democratic Revolution, Choibalsan's statue, on the other hand, still stands in front of the National University of Ulaanbaatar, an institution he helped found, and that for a time bore his name. Moreover, the capital of Dornod Imag continues to carry his name. So as for Choibalsan's lasting influence, what is clear is that his aggressively pro-Russian stance and his active role in increasing Mongolians' economic, political, and social reliance in the Soviet Union turned the country into a Soviet dependency, which has had a lasting impact on modern Mongolian identity and development. His discrimination of the Buddhist clergy and numerous monasteries also robbed Mongolia of rich cultural heritage. In 2017, the Mongolian unveiled the Khorloogiin Choibalsan coin, thus ending the very long and complicated story of Choi Balsan.
It's crazy how they're kind of still honoring him with a coin.
Mm,
I don't know.
I mean, he did help found the country.
Yeah, he did help with that, and then he got like a treaty passed to help,
Mm-hmm.
so they could have help. But I don't know. It's like
He founded a university and the education system in Mongolia.
but does that make up for all the bad? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. He did kill a lot of people.
A lot of people. That's a lot of people. It's just like, okay, well, but I gave you peace, sort of.
Did he really
It's not
give
even really
peace?
like peace though. It was like I don't know. It wasn't a peace treaty, was it? It was just a treaty to say like, okay, we like a truce kind of. Is
Well, it
that
was
kind of what
like
it
they had
was?
this agreement within Mongolia, the Soviet Union, but they did like during World War II, they did fight against the Japanese Empire like a lot. That was like their mortal enemy.
Mm,
So they did like officially declare war with them like 2 years before uh, the Japanese lost World War II. So yeah, so like he killed and tortured a lot of people that sometimes he just didn't like and would just make up stuff to
yeah.
to get them like usurped from power. So he was also a usurper who used the Soviet Union to climb up the ranks to become like the undisputed dictator leader of Mongolia.
Yep.
So how do you think a guy who wanted to gain independence for Mongolia turned into such a terrible dictator who ruled with an iron fist?
I have no idea. Like, how does that happen? I don't know. I just feel like power gets to some people sometimes, and it just can get away from them, and they don't think before they act because the power is just like,
Mm-hmm.
I can do whatever I want. I don't know.
Yeah.
It sounds like he kind of pulled back on that a little,
Mm-hmm.
did some good, but I don't know how I feel about this guy.
He usually started doing the most good after World War II, like after he
Hmm.
did like all those like genocides and everything, um,
Hmm.
and that's when he started trying to like do that.
That's
And
like towards the beginning of all his stuff. And then towards the end, he's trying to like, let's try to fix
yeah,
this. How can I make this better kind
yeah,
of thing?
but he still executed and like
Yeah.
killed people during that time, but it was just never at that level that it was in the
Hmm.
1930s.
Right.
Um, and also, he wanted to unify Mongolia. Do you think that was like a noble like motivation for him to have? Because that's what he ultimately wanted before he died.
Maybe, yeah, that's probably what he wanted to be remembered for,
Mm-hmm. But he
being
was
that
yeah,
dude.
yeah. But Stalin did not want that to happen, and that's why. And then like Choibalsan really hated him for it.
It
What?
was his last, like, you know,
Yeah.
to him.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you don't want that? That's what's going to happen.
But he
You know
died.
what I mean?
He died of kidney cancer before he could do
Yeah,
anything.
it just happened.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like it was similar thing happened with Napoleon, which is also like another good topic to have, where he started off as being like a great liberator of France. He dethroned the the king, and then he basically became this like power hungry dictator who wanted to rule all of Europe, and then he and then he kidnapped the Pope and punched him in the face and said like make me emperor or else. That's what he
Jeez,
really did.
Louise.
Yeah, he kidnapped the Pope and tortured him until he made him emperor.
Yes, that's ugly.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's Choi Balsan for you. What are your final thoughts on Choi Balsan?
I don't know. I don't know.
So,
I
like,
mean, I'm glad that, you know, the Mongolian people are I mean, you know, but he did what he did for them. But it's just a shame that all that other stuff happened all before that.
Mm-hmm. But so like I know like some Mongolians are trying to like wake up to his actions though. They're trying to like look
Yeah.
back and
It's
more
kind of
objectively.
like all these statues of all these Confederate leaders that are now being shown like a light over for being slave owners and stuff like that.
Well, they wanted
Like
to
what?
keep
You know what
slaves.
I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Stuff like
That
that.
George Washington was a slave owner. Same thing for Jefferson.
Yeah, yeah. And so people are like, why are we idolizing these people? They did so much bad as well, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, like why do we have statues of these people?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, in Mongolia, Choibalsan's statue is still there.
That right there, right?
Yeah.
That's the one.
Mm-hmm.
The legacy.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they tore down Stalin's statue, but
Oh.
Choibalsan still stays up. And even like when like during the Democratic Revolution, when they kind of like destroyed the mausoleum, they still handled the bodies of Choibalsan and Sukbatar's body with respect still, giving them like a ceremonial cremation uh, with the Buddhist clergy and all that, and they
Hmm.
they put like the ashes in like this special place for them, even despite it was like a revolution, a democratic revolution. So
Hmm.
yeah, like but I don't know if I can say the same for their ultimate founder. What was it? Genghis Khan. That's a whole another story.
Hmm. Okay. I don't know about that one.
Genghis Khan, he was the founder of
Hmm.
the Mongolian Empire.
Oh,
He
no.
was a
Don't
huge
know.
warlord.
Oh, man. They're all bad.
Oh
They're
snap!
all bad.
Do you think they're all bad?
They're all bad.
Oh no. So yep, that's that's it for today. We learned a lot. Learned a lot about history. Did you learn a lot?
Hmm. Yeah, I did. I
Yeah.
did.
So Troy Balsan, bad guy, good guy, morally gray area.
Yeah, it was like really bad and then like good and then that's it.
Yeah, I think like the bad was like all the way up here, and then the good was like here, and
And all
then
the people
now
are
we're bad.
seeing or want to see is the good, but it's kind of for me. I mean, since I'm just learning about this with you
Mm-hmm.
or from you telling me, it's really hard to overlook all that bad.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So yeah, that's the end of the episode. Uh, so did you have a good time here today, Jessica?
I sure did. Thanks for the story. Don't forget to tune in next week. We got another story for you.
Yeah, this time you're gonna lead the way on this one. The next one. The
Mm-hmm.
next one's gonna be a secret.
Okay,
Shh.
shh.
Okay.
Gotta come back and
Yeah.
see.
I've been Nathaniel Avila.
And I'm Jessica Vega.
Bye.
Bye.